"Every night feels colder without a man," said the giant Apache girl to the lone farmer. The land was wide and quiet, stretching farther than the eye could see. Long fields of dry soil, patches of green crops, and open sky made the place feel both free and lonely at the same time. This was where the farmer lived. He had no close neighbors, no busy roads, and no noise except the wind, birds, and the sound of his own work. Every morning he woke up before the sun, washed his face with cold water, and stepped outside to begin another long day. He was a man used to silence. His life had taught him not to expect company. Years ago, he had lost the people who once filled his home with voices and warmth. Since then, he had chosen to live alone, believing that distance protected the heart. The land became his only partner. He planted seeds, repaired fences, fed animals, and watched the seasons change. At night, he sat outside with a small fire or a lantern, eating simple meals and listening to the sounds of the dark. Some nights felt peaceful. Other nights felt empty, though he rarely admitted that even to himself. Not far from his land lived an Apache community, settled closer to the hills and trees. Among them was a young woman known for her unusual height and strong build. Many called her a giant, not to insult her, but because she stood taller than most men and carried herself with calm confidence. From a young age, she had been trained to work hard, protect her people, and respect the land. Her strength was visible, but her quiet nature made some forget she also carried deep feelings inside. She had lost her parents early in life and had learned to rely on herself. People often thought she needed nothing, that she was made only of courage and endurance. But when night came and the fires burned low, she felt the same cold loneliness others did. She watched families gather, heard laughter, and felt the silence around her own sleeping space grow heavier. She never complained. In her culture, strength was honored and she carried it well. Still, her heart noticed what her face never showed. The farmer had seen members of the Apache community from a distance before, but he kept to himself. He believed in respect and did not want to intrude. He worked his land honestly and avoided trouble. One late afternoon, while checking the far edge of his field, he noticed something unusual. One of his wooden fences had fallen, likely damaged by wind or wandering animals. As he walked closer, he saw a tall figure already there, examining the broken posts. It was the Apache girl. She stood still when she noticed him, not startled but alert. The farmer slowed his steps, raised his hand slightly to show he meant no harm, and stopped a few feet away. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt tense but not dangerous. The sun was low, painting the land in soft gold and orange light. He cleared his throat and spoke first, his voice calm and respectful. He mentioned the fence and thanked her for noticing it. She nodded and replied simply, saying the fence had fallen onto land near her people's path. She had come to make sure no animals were hurt. Her voice was steady, deeper than most women's, but gentle. They worked together without planning it. He lifted the broken posts while she held them steady. Her strength surprised him, though he did not show it. She noticed his careful movements and the way he treated the land with patience. They did not talk much, but the silence between them felt different from the lonely silence both were used to. It felt shared. As they finished, the farmer offered water. She accepted, sitting on a nearby rock. He sat on the ground, keeping distance, respecting her space. They exchanged small words about the weather, the land, the coming season. Nothing personal, nothing heavy. Still, something about the moment stayed with both of them. When she stood to leave, she thanked him again and turned toward her path. Before walking away, she paused and looked back at the wide fields and the small house in the distance. She asked him if he lived there alone. He hesitated, then nodded. She did not ask why. She simply said she hoped the land treated him kindly. That night the farmer sat by his fire longer than usual. He thought about the brief meeting. It had been simple, yet it had shifted something inside him. He realized how long it had been since he had spoken to someone who truly listened. He shook the thought away, telling himself it meant nothing. In her camp, the Apache girl lay under the stars. The night air felt colder than usual. Her thoughts returned to the farmer, his quiet nature, and the way he worked without complaint. She remembered his careful respect and the calm in his eyes. She told herself it was just a meeting, nothing more. Still, she noticed the silence differently that night. Neither of them knew it yet, but the land had begun to change. Not because of weather or season, but because two lonely lives had crossed paths. And that small moment near a broken fence was only the beginning of something neither of them had planned, but both would feel deeply as time moved forward. The days after their first meeting passed quietly, but neither of them forgot it. The farmer returned to his routine, waking early and working until his body felt tired. Yet something had changed. When he walked near the edge of his land, he sometimes found himself looking toward the path that led to the Apache settlement. He did not expect to see her again, but a part of him wondered if their paths would cross once more. A few mornings later, as the sun rose and the air was still cool, the farmer noticed movement near the field. At first, he thought it might be animals, but then he saw her. The Apache girl was walking slowly, carrying a small bundle in her hands. She stopped when she noticed him and waited, not stepping onto his land without permission. He waved gently, inviting her closer. She greeted him with a calm nod and explained that she had brought food as a thank you for fixing the fence. Inside the bundle were simple things: flat bread, dried fruit, and warm stew kept carefully covered. The farmer was surprised. No one had brought him food in years. He thanked her, a little unsure of what to say but clearly touched by the gesture. They sat outside near his house, keeping a comfortable distance. The morning sun warmed the ground as they ate together in silence at first. The silence was not awkward. It felt natural, like both of them understood that words were not always needed. After a while, the farmer spoke about his crops and how the weather had been kind this season. She listened closely, asking questions that showed she truly cared. She shared a little about her daily life too, helping her people, walking the land, watching over the younger ones in the community. She spoke simply, without pride, but it was clear she carried responsibility. The farmer noticed how her eyes softened when she talked about protecting others. He respected that. As the days went on, these small meetings became more common. Sometimes she came with food, other times just to talk. Sometimes he offered water or shared what little he had. They began to sit closer to the fire in the evenings as the nights grew cooler. The firelight reflected on their faces, creating a feeling of warmth that went beyond the flames. One evening, as the sky turned dark blue and stars appeared, she spoke more openly than before. She talked about the cold nights and how even strong people feel the weight of silence. She said that when everyone sleeps and the world grows quiet, the cold feels deeper, not just on the skin, but inside the heart. Her voice remained steady, but her words carried truth. The farmer listened carefully. He did not interrupt. When she finished, he shared something rare for him. He spoke about his past, about loss, about choosing a quiet life because it felt safer than risking pain again. He admitted that some nights felt endless, even with the land around him. Saying these things aloud felt strange but also freeing. They realized that although their lives were very different, their feelings were similar. Both were strong in their own ways. Both carried loneliness without showing it to the world. That understanding created a bond neither of them had expected. Still, they remained careful. They respected each other's worlds and did not rush anything. The Apache girl never stayed too late, always leaving before the fire burned low. The farmer never crossed into her land without reason. Their connection grew slowly, built on trust, shared silence, and honest words. As the season moved forward, others began to notice. Some in the Apache community saw her walking toward the farmer's land more often. They did not speak against it openly, but quiet questions were asked. The farmer, too, felt the eyes of distant neighbors when she visited. He knew not everyone would understand. One evening after she left, the farmer stood alone under the stars. He felt warmth in his chest, but also worry. He wondered if this growing connection would bring trouble. He asked himself if it was fair to allow hope into a life he had kept closed for so long. At the same time, the Apache girl returned to her people, her steps slow and thoughtful. She felt stronger when she was with him, but also more aware of her heart. She knew that feelings could change paths, and change was never easy. Neither of them spoke of the future. But with every shared meal, every quiet conversation, and every fire-lit evening, something deeper was forming. They both felt it, even if they did not yet have the courage to name. They spent more mornings together in the fields, repairing fences, tending animals, and sharing meals. Conversations became easier, and silence no longer felt heavy, but life had a way of testing even the strongest connections. One afternoon, as the sun hung high and the heat pressed down on the earth, the farmer noticed a small group of men approaching. They were neighbors from the distant town, curious about his growing relationship with the Apache girl. Their voices were low at first, but he could sense their skepticism. They asked questions, some polite, others sharp, as if to remind him that he lived apart from their world. They seemed unsure why he spent so much time with someone from another community. The farmer explained simply that the girl was kind, helpful, and honest. He spoke calmly, showing respect without apology. Still, he could see the doubt in their eyes. They left after a while, muttering to each other. The encounter left him uneasy. He had expected solitude, but now he realized that choosing companionship sometimes invited attention and judgment from others. Meanwhile, in the Apache community, whispers spread quietly. Some elders admired the girl's independence and strength, yet they wondered why she spent so much time away from her people. They questioned whether outside influence could change her, or whether she risked being hurt. She heard the concerns, yet she did not feel shame. She knew her own heart better than anyone else. Still, the quiet worry in her community weighed on her. As tensions rose around them, their own interactions became more delicate. One evening, after a long day in the fields, the farmer noticed her hesitation. She had come to bring food, but she lingered at the edge of the fire, unsure whether to sit closer. He sensed her unease and did not press. They ate together, but the ease that had been growing between them was replaced with caution. Words were fewer, laughter rare. The silence felt heavier than before. Days passed like this, each meeting tinged with uncertainty. The farmer wondered if their growing bond had become a mistake. He feared offending her people or giving others the wrong impression. The Apache girl felt a similar struggle. She had opened her heart, something she rarely did, and now the pressure of judgment made her question herself. She wondered if allowing herself to feel had been reckless. Then came a night that changed everything. A sudden storm swept across the land. Rain fell in heavy sheets, and wind tore at the trees and fences. The farmer worked tirelessly to secure his crops and animals, but the storm was relentless. He worried not only for his own land, but also for the Apache community nearby. Without thinking, he ran toward the path leading to her home. He had to make sure she was safe. When he arrived, he found her helping younger members of her community move livestock to safer ground. Her tall frame moved with strength and purpose, but her expression showed fatigue and worry. Seeing her there, fighting against the storm, the farmer realized how much he cared, not just for her safety but for her as a person. Without a word, he joined her. Together they worked through the night, moving animals, reinforcing shelters, and offering quiet support to each other. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the land wet, muddy, and damaged. They sat on a fallen log, soaked and exhausted, breathing heavily. In the quiet aftermath, the tension that had built over the past days seemed to dissolve. The storm had forced them to rely on one another, and in that reliance they found a new understanding. Words were few, but the connection was deeper than ever. Despite the relief of safety, challenges remained. The farmer knew that outside scrutiny would not disappear. The Apache girl knew that her community would watch carefully, ready to judge any misstep. But they had both learned something essential. Their bond was stronger than fear. They had faced danger together and survived. The days that followed were quieter. They returned to their routines, but with a subtle shift. The farmer worked in the fields with a lighter step, and the Apache girl moved through her community with a soft confidence that came from knowing someone truly valued her. Their small moments, sharing water, exchanging brief smiles, helping with chores, carried more meaning now. Each act was a silent affirmation of trust and care. Yet even with this progress, they were aware of the fragility of their situation. One misunderstanding or careless word could undo the trust they had built. They learned to communicate with patience, to read each other's intentions, and to offer support without expectation. Each day became a test, but also a lesson in resilience and understanding. Late one evening, the farmer walked to the edge of his land, watching the sun set behind distant hills. He thought about the Apache girl and the storm that had brought them closer. He realized that life would never be completely predictable, but facing uncertainty with someone he trusted made the world feel less intimidating. In her own camp, the Apache girl stared at the sky, the stars reflected in her thoughtful eyes. She acknowledged her feelings for the farmer, but she also recognized the responsibility she carried toward her community. Her heart was divided, yet she felt a quiet strength growing within her, a strength that came from knowing she did not have to face challenges alone anymore. The parting that night was soft and silent. They exchanged no promises, no words of love, but something had shifted irreversibly. They had faced judgment, uncertainty, and danger, and had chosen to stand together in small ways. Both understood that the path ahead would be full of challenges, yet also full of possibility. This chapter of their lives closed with a sense of cautious hope. Both the farmer and the Apache girl were learning that connection required patience, courage, and trust. The world around them might not fully understand, but that did not matter. What mattered was the bond they were building, quietly, carefully, and with respect for both themselves and each other. And so, as the land rested under a gentle night sky, both of them felt it, that even in a world full of questions and judgment, they had found a place where they could stand together, steady and strong, without losing themselves in the process. Their hearts were opening slowly, and with each passing day, the warmth between them grew, even as the challenges outside reminded them how precious such connection could be. The seasons shifted slowly, bringing changes to the land and to their lives. The farmer's fields grew greener, the crops stronger, but with growth came challenges. One morning, he noticed damage to some of the plants caused by a sudden frost. It was unexpected, and he realized that the coming months would not be easy. There would be long hours of work, repairs, and careful attention to ensure the land survived. The weight of responsibility pressed on him, but he did not complain. He had learned to face hardship quietly, relying on patience and determination. The Apache girl noticed his concern as she arrived that afternoon with her usual quiet presence. She offered help without hesitation, carrying baskets and tools as if they were small things, though the weight on her shoulders was not small at all. Together they worked the fields, planting new seeds, repairing fences, and ensuring the animals had shelter. The work was hard, the sun relentless, yet there was a rhythm to it, a quiet satisfaction in seeing small improvements day by day. But the world around them was not always kind. One morning, a messenger arrived from the town, bringing news that frightened the farmer. There had been reports of wild animals nearby, wolves, drawn closer by hunger and the changing seasons. Some neighbors advised him to leave the land to protect himself and the crops from danger. The farmer hesitated. This land was not just soil and crops to him, it was home. He could not abandon it. He would find another way, as he always had. The Apache girl stood beside him, offering strength without demanding it. She reminded him of the ways her people had protected themselves and the land for generations. Her words were calm, practical, and full of experience. They devised a plan together, building better fences, securing the animals at night, and keeping watch in pairs. They worked long hours, their movements synchronized in unspoken understanding. Through shared effort, a sense of partnership deepened between them. Even as they faced these external challenges, internal struggles arose. Both were aware of the growing feelings between them, but neither knew how to express them fully. The farmer had always been reserved, his heart guarded after years of solitude. The Apache girl had always relied on her strength and independence, not on others for comfort. Yet, each moment spent together, the shared meals, quiet talks by the fire, or simply walking the field side by side, revealed the warmth they brought to one another. One night after a particularly long day of work, the farmer returned to his small home, his clothes damp with sweat and dust from the fields. He sat on the edge of his porch, exhausted, and thought about her. He realized he had grown to depend on her presence, not for physical help alone, but for the calm assurance she brought to his life. He had always managed alone, but now he saw that strength did not mean facing everything by oneself. True strength could be found in standing together. At the same time, the Apache girl returned to her camp. She was quiet, her usual confidence softened by reflection. She thought about the farmer and the hours they had spent together, the way he listened, the way he respected the land and her. She realized that her heart had begun to trust him, a feeling she had avoided for years. She told herself it was okay to feel this way, that seeking companionship was not weakness but courage. Then came a day that tested them both. A sudden accident in the fields left the farmer injured. He had slipped while moving heavy logs, and his leg was bruised and swollen. The pain was sharp, but he refused to show it immediately, worried that it might worry her. The Apache girl noticed his limp and quickly moved to help, carrying supplies and tending to him carefully. She did not complain, nor did she hesitate. Her strength became his support, and in that moment, roles reversed. He had been the helper for so long, but now he experienced the comfort of someone caring for him with equal dedication. During the days of recovery, they spent more time together than ever. She would prepare meals, fetch water, and help with tasks he could no longer manage. In return, he shared stories from his past, lessons learned from hard work and quiet living, and small memories that had shaped who he was. They laughed at mistakes, like spilled water or dropped tools, and found joy in the simplest tasks. These moments, small as they seemed, wove a bond that was deeper than either could have predicted. The farmer began to realize that love did not always need grand gestures. Sometimes it was found in the silent understanding of another's needs, the shared effort, and the mutual respect that grew day by day. The Apache girl felt the same way. She had always known how to protect herself and her people, but she now understood that opening her heart to trust and care did not lessen her strength. It enhanced it. Their quiet life, however, could not be without trials. Harsh weather, unexpected animal troubles, and the occasional doubt from others reminded them that life was never simple. But these challenges also became opportunities to grow together. Each obstacle faced side by side reinforced their bond. The farmer learned patience and reliance, while the Apache girl learned that trust could be shared without fear. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the horizon glowed orange, they sat together on a hill overlooking the fields. The farmer's leg was nearly healed, but he remained seated to enjoy the moment. They shared silence first, watching the shadows stretch across the land, and then conversation followed naturally. They spoke about dreams for the future, hopes for their communities, and the small joys they found in everyday life. The words were simple, yet filled with honesty. It was in these quiet, unhurried moments that both realized something important. The bond between them was not fleeting. It was steady, built on shared experiences, trust, and mutual respect. Neither had expected it and neither had rushed it, but its presence was undeniable. They had learned that love and companionship could exist alongside independence and strength. They had found a way to stand alone while standing together. As night fell and the stars appeared one by one, the farmer and the Apache girl remained on the hill. A cool breeze brushed against them, and the warmth they felt was not only from the day's work, but from the quiet comfort of knowing someone understood them deeply. They did not need to speak of promises or the future. In that moment, it was enough to simply be together, to share the silence, and to know that even in a world full of challenges, they had each other to lean on. By facing hardship, injury, and the opinions of others, they had discovered a truth. Life was not just about surviving alone. It was about standing together, supporting each other through storms both literal and figurative, and finding joy in shared effort. The farmer had grown stronger in his patience and trust, while the Apache girl had found freedom in allowing herself to care and be cared for. The days continued to pass, each one filled with work, care, and quiet companionship. Their relationship, built slowly through shared trials, had become a source of warmth and strength. They no longer feared what the world thought, for they had found something stronger than judgment or doubt. They had found a bond that could withstand storms, physical and emotional alike. And so, as the land rested under the fading light of evening, both the farmer and the Apache girl felt a deep sense of belonging. They had faced hardship alone in the past, but now they understood the power of facing it together. Their hearts, once guarded and wary, had opened to trust, patience, and quiet love. The path ahead remained uncertain, but with each other, they felt ready to face whatever life would bring. The days grew longer and the nights cooler as winter slowly approached. The farmer's land, though battered by storms and frost, still stood strong because of the care and effort he poured into it. The Apache girl visited as often as she could, her presence now as familiar as the rising sun. They had settled into a rhythm, simple yet full of meaning, built on mutual respect, shared work, and quiet companionship. Both understood that life was unpredictable, but they had learned how to stand together against it. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and purple, they sat together outside the farmer's small house. A gentle wind rustled through the trees, carrying the earthy scent of the land. She spoke first, her voice calm but thoughtful. She mentioned how cold the nights felt when one faced them alone, and how the presence of another could make even the darkest hour lighter. Her words were simple, yet filled with truth. The farmer listened, feeling the warmth of her hand brushing against his as they shared a small basket of bread and dried fruit. He realized, more clearly than ever, that the bond they shared was not just about help or companionship. It was about understanding, patience, and the quiet joy of knowing someone truly cared. He had spent years alone, believing that strength came from independence, but now he knew that strength could also come from connection. As the nights grew colder, they worked together to prepare the land and their homes for the harsh season ahead. Fires were built larger, fences reinforced, and animals given extra shelter and food. The Apache girl showed the farmer traditional ways of keeping warmth during the winter, and shared her knowledge of herbs and simple remedies for illness. In return, he taught her small tricks he had learned over the years for maintaining tools, storing crops, and caring for the land efficiently. Each day they exchanged more than just practical advice. They shared laughter, stories, and a growing sense of comfort that neither had expected. Despite their growing closeness, they remained careful. Both knew that life could be fragile, and that rushing their bond could bring unnecessary worry or danger. Yet in the quiet moments, sitting by the fire, walking the fields at sunset, or tending animals together, they learned to trust not just the other person, but also the shared rhythm of their lives. They discovered that companionship was not about constant conversation or grand gestures, but about presence, care, and understanding. One particularly cold night, the Apache girl stayed later than usual. She had helped secure the animals and repair a broken fence caused by the wind, and now she lingered by the fire, wrapped in a thick blanket. The farmer watched her quietly, noticing the way the firelight danced across her face, highlighting the calm strength in her eyes. For the first time, he spoke openly about his feelings, admitting how much her presence had come to mean to him. He did not use grand words or poetic lines. He spoke simply and honestly about warmth, trust, and companionship. She listened carefully, her expression softening as he spoke. She did not respond immediately with words, but her hand touched his lightly, and in that silent gesture, he understood her answer. The bond between them had grown beyond shared work or mutual respect. It had become a deep connection of hearts. Neither needed to rush, and neither needed to speak further to know that they were now part of each other's lives in a meaningful way. As the winter deepened, the farmer and the Apache girl faced small challenges together. A sudden snowfall made travel difficult, and a mild sickness spread among the livestock. They worked side by side, tending the animals, clearing snow, and ensuring that the land and community were cared for. Through these trials, their partnership strengthened. Each action, each shared responsibility reinforced their trust in one another. They realized that love could be practical, built on daily life, patience, and the understanding that facing hardships together made life lighter. One night, while sitting on the porch wrapped in blankets and sipping warm herbal tea, the Apache girl spoke about her childhood and the lessons she had learned from her elders. She shared stories about resilience, courage, and the importance of community. The farmer shared memories of his past, of solitude, and of lessons learned through patience and endurance. They laughed together at small memories, comforted each other through shared understanding, and discovered that their lives, though different, were now intertwined in meaningful ways. Then came a day that required a significant choice. The farmer received news of a distant relative who needed help with urgent matters on their land. Leaving would mean being away for weeks, possibly months. He hesitated, not wanting to leave the Apache girl alone or disrupt the rhythm they had built. When he explained the situation, she considered it carefully. Instead of insisting he stay, she encouraged him to go, assuring him that their bond would remain strong despite the distance. Her confidence and understanding moved him deeply, reinforcing the trust and respect that had always been at the heart of their connection. Before leaving, they walked together through the fields, hand in hand. The farmer felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that their bond was strong enough to endure the temporary separation. She reminded him that warmth did not depend on constant presence, but on the trust and love that lived between them. He nodded, understanding that their connection had grown beyond daily routines. It had become a part of their lives, quietly and steadily. During his absence, they wrote letters and left messages through small acts of care, ensuring that neither felt alone. Each letter carried simple words of encouragement, observations about the land, or shared memories of their work together. Even separated by distance, the connection remained, proving that love and companionship were not limited by space. When he finally returned, the reunion was quiet but powerful. They met on the edge of the fields, the wind carrying the scent of earth and snow. Without needing to speak much, they embraced, feeling the strength of a bond that had endured separation, challenges, and the passing of seasons. Their hearts, once guarded and wary, now trusted completely. As the story neared its end, they settled into a life that was no longer lonely. Each night, the farmer and the Apache girl sat by the fire, watched the stars, and shared small, meaningful moments. The cold nights no longer felt harsh because they faced them together. Each act of care, each shared meal, and each quiet conversation became a part of their shared story. In the final moments, the Apache girl spoke the words that had lingered since their first days together. "Every night feels colder without a man." This time, though, her words were not a lament but a statement of truth and shared warmth. The farmer understood completely. Their bond was not about dependence or weakness. It was about choice, trust, and the comfort of standing together through life's challenges. The story ends with them walking side by side across the fields under a sky full of stars. The land, once lonely and harsh, now felt full of life and hope. They had found warmth in each other, not because they needed saving, but because they had chosen to share life together. The trials they had faced had strengthened them, and their bond was steady, resilient, and enduring. Together, they had discovered that love was simple, patient, and quietly powerful, a connection that could weather any storm, endure any distance, and illuminate even the coldest nights.